Hi, everyone. Hey, welcome.
Mhm.
Welcome to our book study. Come on in the room. Hi, all. Oh, there's this lawyer guy that I like to watch that says, "Hey, all." What's that guy's name? Hey, all. Uh, what is his name? Dang, I can't remember now. He has my hairdo, and he when he opens up his video, he goes, "Hey, all."
I like
So yeah, it's a good intro. Hey, all. How's it going? Good to see you all and welcome. Looks like, oh, blessings. David Fishman is in the house. Hey,
Oh,
all.
David.
Good to see you, brother.
Hi,
Happy
David.
birthday. Let's see. I think Dove might be, are you 93? Yeah, right. You see, I got his attention. I added 10 years. It's funny. I just saw him at John Mundy's birthday party. We celebrated John's 80th birthday last week in
Oh,
in New Jersey, and it was a great time.
oh,
And I got to connect with David Fishman in person.
oh,
He's
sweet.
still 2 feet taller than me. He's a very tall man. All right, well, we'll get started. Rosalyn Rourke is our co-host this week, and we were just talking in the green room about her book that's coming out. And the title is, what is it, Rosalyn?
When wisdom arrives, from imagined unworthiness to freedom.
Nice. Yeah, nice. I wanted to give that a moment to fill the space. It's a beautiful title.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing that with me and with all of us.
Oh,
And this week continue to look at the discourses of Atmananda Krishna Menon. He is a master of masters. Every time I look at one of these books, especially from one that's passed, it makes me go, "Oh man, I wish I would have met that guy or that woman."
mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of women. Some of them. I got to meet Gangaji last year. We went out to see her and her place in Oregon, Ashland, Oregon. But the guys like John Klein, I wished I could have met him. I did get to meet other people. We have Rupert Spira, Francis Lucille right now, and yours truly, Rosalyn Rourke. She's right here in the house. Anyway, thank you for being our co-host this week, Rosalyn.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you for the experience and the opportunity. Yeah.
So before we get started, I will be looking for a substitute for Joel, not just next week, but every time he's in the schedule. He has taken a new job and he can only listen to the recorder. So Joel, you gave us another gap in our schedule we need to fill. So if anyone is listening and has a space they can fill for next week, please let me know. Otherwise, we're going to move to the discourses, starting with 131.
Yeah.
Rosalind, what is
Yeah.
this one saying to you?
Well, this one speaks to me about the world of duality, and it's called Pain and Pleasure. And I like the particular focus that he has. He starts off telling us that they're two sides of the same coin and they beset each other. But this chapter has meant so much to me because it's easy to think of duality when things are painful. Oh, there's another side to this. And then I'm in the world of duality. But it took me a little while to give up the duality when it was the pleasure, the high. Oh, everything's in the flow, which means everything went my way.
Right, yes.
And it's so important to see both sides as that same coin of duality. And as he uses that word, they beget each other. So do you want me to use the exact words in here? That's my summary of this paragraph.
Well, do whatever you want. I love, I mean, I know that what is being extracted from here it's potent because it gives you an opportunity to have a paradigm shift
Mhm.
in the duality, but also in one being good and one being bad.
Mhm. Yeah.
I love his presentation
Yes,
on
I do
that.
too. And he does add something else on the last paragraph of this section. He says, the moment you understand the source of it all to be your own self or real nature, every pleasure or pain you feel becomes yourself. Losing the characteristic of pleasure or pain, and then eternal peace prevails. And if anybody's earlier on their journey here, I remember that would have felt like gobbledygook, or I couldn't have made sense of that. But because I think I always went back to the I being the personal self.
Yeah.
So what's important to get this is that when he says it becomes yourself, it's I consciousness. I, not the body. I, not the personal self. I, not the personality. I, not your thoughts and your feelings. I, the eternal. And then the eternal peace prevails, but only with that understanding, that wisdom, that, that breakthrough.
Yeah. And as you identify as both pain and pleasure, and there's no separate part or one that's good or one that's bad, then it's easier to identify the I
Mhm.
that is both and neither.
Yeah, and I think if I'm understanding you correctly, what you really mean is you don't identify with the good and bad, and then you hold to your identity as pure awareness, or that neither the good or the bad affect you as yourself, is what I think you were saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's sort of all merged into one thing, and at the same time, like if I notice pain
Mhm.
and also pleasure, but I'll work with pain for a second. If I notice pain under this idea, it's just a noticing and a equal appreciation. Of course, when I'm in pain and itching for poison ivy, or maybe there's a crack in my foot and I step on it wrong and there's a pain, it somehow doesn't feel like an orgasm. It
Yeah.
just doesn't. It
Yeah.
just
No. No.
but yet it's the same.
Yeah, and the difference doesn't matter. You do notice the difference, but it doesn't mean anything. You haven't imposed the good in it. You haven't made it separate.
Yeah.
You haven't made it you. But we are still in a body, and so if your hand touches the stove, you're going to say ouch. You're not going to say yay, and you're going to pull your hand away, and that's nothing.
Yes.
It doesn't mean anything except
Yeah.
for it was going to burn.
Well, there is another part of that. Uh, what happens next is when you burn something
Mhm.
gets burned, the mind immediately rushes in and starts characterizing it and
Mhm.
making it really bad.
Yeah.
And if that is no longer held,
Yes.
it's likely that it's not going to be as
Yeah.
terrible of a experience.
Yes, and that's where the intervention comes in. That's where consciousness, not a doing, it's just, oh, like if you start to make a story over how bad it is that you got burned, that's when you can stop and you sit, like you say, don't feed it, don't
Yeah.
touch it, don't leave it alone.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where everything can be different. And that's when you come back to your true self consciousness.
Yeah. This last paragraph of this discourse, the moment you understand the source of it all to be your own self or real nature,
Mhm.
every pleasure or pain you feel becomes yourself,
Mhm.
losing the characteristic of pleasure or pain, and then eternal. So that just
I see what you're
feels
saying. Uh-huh.
that just
Yeah.
feels really good. It's just all, it's all the reference of you, that is everything, is experiencing itself
Mhm.
as itself, and not with any separate identification.
Mhm.
It's all you.
Yeah. Is Jenny Beal here today? I didn't look through here.
I don't see her. Let's see.
I wondered on the next one if she wanted to add to anything on the when we
No,
get there.
she's not here.
Jenny is here.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
she is?
Okay. So
Oh, good.
great. Shall we move on, Bill?
Yep.
Hello.
So I may be, hi, Jenny.
Oh,
I'm
hi,
saying
Jenny.
this wrong. Vidya Yariti? How do you say that, Jenny?
Vidya Vriti.
Okay. When I looked that up, it was, you might be able to expand, but mental awareness against disturbance. It's his pointers in Sanskrit toward that. Can you want to expand on that?
Yes, it's as he says, it's a form of higher reasoning or clear seeing. Might be a good way of explaining it, and it's when there's no feeling of separation. You see things clearly as they are.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. That makes sense. And Vriti means, let's see here, pure goodness. I looked up that word. That's what, pure goodness. And Vidya means correct knowledge. So the clear, I think clear thinking, clear awareness.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So he says that even in worldly enjoyment, it's your own real nature of peace that you experience. For example, you enjoy happiness listening to sweet music. Here, music helps you only to empty your mind of all thoughts other than music. And finally, it's emptied of the thought of music also. This is the mind, thus the mind ceases to be, and you come to happiness, and that is your real nature. It's wrong to believe that happiness came from the hearing of the music, because music was not there when the happiness was enjoyed. I love that, because then that's about nature too. People think, oh, I need to go back to nature to feel all right today, or I need to do my practices, or I need to pick up the course, or I need to read the Bible, or whatever it is. But those are just the vehicles to return us to ourselves.
Yeah.
Do you have more to add to that?
No, I just underlined, thus the mind ceases to be, and you come to, and you come to happiness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what that's what the pointing is I want to say hoping for. That's what the goal of the pointing is to bring that attention as a new default.
Yeah. And if we look back on for most of us, I think if we are all mostly like me, you did believe it was the chocolate or the experience of that activity or the music or the nature. There was a time when even in childhood, you thought that game or that thing. So it's a big deal to let that in and know that. We take that for granted now, most of us, but it was a big deal.
Well, I mean, so there's you said that the chocolate is a taste that it yes, it seems like that is bringing some kind of energy, but there's a taste that you don't have 30 minutes after you eat it.
Mhm.
And it's the taste of that brings this kind of experience, right?
No, I think, well, I don't know. The way I'm thinking about it now is because I put the meaning in addition to the taste. I add the meaning of how I love chocolate, and it's going to give me this feeling. And now I attribute it just as he does to the music, whereas I allowed the chocolate to bring me back to my truth, the truth of who I am. And I use that vehicle and I give it that power or that meaning.
Yeah. Cool. That's funny.
Yeah.
Why, the world loves chocolate. That's just a given. Where it doesn't matter what country you go to, the world loves chocolate. So we can always give it as a reference. That brings pleasure. And I guess if you're a dog, it probably doesn't always bring pleasure.
They will eat it, but they can die from it.
That's
So
what
it's,
I heard.
for them, it's poison. But I've never seen a dog turn it down.
Right.
So that's another point. But you could put in those vehicles you like, those what are
the John Deere tractors? No, the John Deere tractors. Yeah.
John Deere tractors. We'll put that in for you.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
That's funny.
Okay.
Mind 133 is mind.
Yeah. Some shastras, which are the scriptures, hold that the mind functions in the waking and dreaming states and remains functionless in deep sleep. This position is quite untenable. If mind should remain functioning in one state and functionless in another, mind should be the background of both the function and functionless, having nothing to do with either. In this sense, mind is Atma itself. And this is one of those sections that the last time I co-facilitated, I mentioned when he gets a little heady for me, I've learned to skip to the end, and then I get really clear what he's proving, what he's going toward, and then I can go back and it makes sense. So I'm just going to do that for you here.
All right.
A moment. The word mind ought to be correctly understood as the name of a function. Thought is a function. Mind is thought. Feeling is a function. Mind is feeling. So when this is neither thought nor feeling, there is no mind at all. That's his point. And so we can go back to look at it, and he shows you how it's untenable.
Yeah.
And then in the middle, he says, mind is not a substance in itself, nor a container of thoughts and feelings. You cannot, I love this. I just love this. I never put this together. You cannot simultaneously have a thought and a feeling. I'm a psychotherapist for over 30 years. Never occurred to me quite that way, the way that sentence comes, so clear. So it shows that when you have a thought, no part of the mind remains over to take a feeling. Therefore, mind is a thought itself or feeling itself. So when there is no thought or feeling, one cannot say that mind as such exists. I mean, it's so brilliant.
So mind doesn't exist, or it's not active, because mind is really the activity of awareness.
But would you
It
say
still
it's
exists.
localized? It's localized.
It's not revealing itself as present. I would.
Jenny can weigh in and maybe clarify, but I guess what I would say is that it's like the body and the mind are localized consciousness.
So you're saying localized mind doesn't exist?
Yes, that's what I would say. But
Okay.
Jenny, what do you say? A localized mind, you can always activate it, but what he's saying is that it's no more pure consciousness as the body is. It comes and goes. Mind comes and goes,
Okay.
just like the
Okay.
body, just like
Yeah.
objects. Jenny, is that?
I think what he's saying is, in a sense, mind is just a label for the flow of experience. So it's the flow of thoughts and it's the flow of perceptions. So it doesn't have any real existence in and of itself. It's just a label we give, and it is limited, because it's limited to our senses, and it's limited to the thoughts that have room to arrive within a particular body. So yes, and I think it's a beautiful argument that he's using, that in deep sleep mind disappears because that flow disappears, that flow stops. There's really nothing happening, nothing being experienced.
Mm-hmm. Would you say it's much like the body? You know, it's changeable and it's part of the flow, but it's not in itself anything permanent.
Yeah, it's like a river. If you think of the water in the river, and then the water's just continually flowing, and there's different bits of water all the time, and that's so in a way, mind is like a label for the water flowing in a river.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like a good understanding and pointer. Thank you, Jenny.
Yeah, thank you, Jenny.
All right. There was, if mind is taken to be the container of thoughts and feelings, it has to be changeless. Oh, this is the distinction, and this is lovely.
Yeah.
If it is changeless, it transcends time.
Mm-hmm.
Then it must be truth itself.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I love starting with one of those ending paragraphs. I don't know if anybody agrees with me to get, and then going back to the beginning of the section, because I just love to hear the end point and then how he gets there. It's just fun for me.
Well, are you going to do it?
I just did it before on that
Oh,
section.
I thought you were going to do it. Oh,
Yeah,
you mean
I'm not gonna
starting
do
at
it
the
again.
bottom
I'm
where
just-
you did? Got it. Okay.
And then he says, the worldly way of life is to emphasize the object alone in every activity, ignoring the subject altogether. I love this. Spirituality comes in when you begin to bring in and emphasize the subject alongside of the object. Ultimately, when spirituality leads you to realization, the object as such vanishes, and the real subject, the I principle alone, shines. Then all activity points to you, or all activities vanish. So it's kind of the merging. And the always coming back to pure consciousness or the I. And then
Yes.
should we go on to the
Mhm.
three
To the
stages?
3 stages, yes.
Yeah, because I think they're very clear. He's very good at remembering the early stages of awakening. Sometimes I tend to forget where I was, in the like when it becomes so clear, I almost dream as though I've always been there. And I think there's something sweet about he doesn't call these stages. Well, he does these stages. There's something sweet about just seeing the joy of more knowledge, more pure knowledge. So mine usually has 3 stages of expression: instinct, with the body as its instrument; reason, with the particular mind and senses as instruments; intuition. The word intuition is used in different senses in different texts. What is taken up here is yogic intuition. With intuition, time and space are curtailed to a very great extent, but still they are there to enable the intuition to function. The mind is much expanded in intuition. Still, it does not cease to be mind. So we're still mind, even when you get the intuition of go this way versus that way, mind is still involved. Complete annihilation of time and space can never be accomplished by the mind. That is such a precious sentence to me. Because if I speak for many of us, keep on trying to get it with the mind. The background is in an entirely different plane. I love it. It's so clear.
Yeah. And I like the use of the word plane, because that is referencing consciousness in a dimension of reality that that's untouchable. And he uses it 2 times in these discourses. He uses it again in a few minutes. And that word plane, I can only reference it as for me as maybe a name for dimensional reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jenny Beal, what would you how would you describe plane? Is there more than one plane?
No, not really. But I think what he's trying to distinguish here is consciousness, pure consciousness, which is still and unchanging, from the movement of consciousness. So you could think of the movement of consciousness, which is all of manifestation, as being a particular plane, one plane. So the universe and all the phenomena of the universe in one plane, and then consciousness is beyond that plane. It's the background for everything. But that's still a dualistic formulation, but he's taking people gradually, isn't he?
Mm.
Yes. Yes. And one of the things that I got out of this that I hadn't thought of is that, again, in the past, when I had an intuition, and even recently, when I had an intuition, I felt that I was being moved by consciousness, pure consciousness. But what I'm getting here is that it still included a person, a separate person. I was still feeling like the separate person, was being moved. So again, it's dualistic. And so I appreciate having those subtleties pointed out, because there's even more peace when I step back outside of that, as you say, into the background, into that other plane that's always available once we realize we're in dualism. It's just right there. Step out.
Yes, and ultimately, you see and you feel that both planes are combined into one. That there is only one, because what could all the manifestations of consciousness come out of other than consciousness itself? If they came out of something different, then there would be consciousness plus something else on the same level. But we have no evidence that could be the case. We have no evidence that there's anything other than consciousness as the background of everything.
So beautiful, so clear. Thank you. Yeah. Bill?
Yeah, I like the stages too. It's almost like even though it in my mind it wants to be sequential. Any three of these stages can occur in any order, and the three, for instance, is a strong knowing, or even two is a stronger pull, where instincts they happen all the time, and mind doesn't act, it just dismisses easily something like an instinct. But reason and intuition, something that has a stronger pull, it tends to get my attention in a more active experience.
Yeah. And Catherine says, and Catherine, you're right. There's no stepping out. That's dualistic. And yet the experience isn't stepping out, struggling for the words to remember. When you remember pure consciousness, it's not even remembering that I don't have any words when wisdom takes over and another experience happens of the background. So I can't think of a word to say it that doesn't sound, recognition might be it. Yes, stuff.
There it is. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, but so it's good to notice those words, and also when the words aren't describing the actual experience, because it doesn't feel dualistic to remember.
Right. Well, let's move to 135.
All right. I love that because it follows what Jenny was saying, the second part. To an ignorant man, the objective world is an obstacle to spiritual progress because objects always draw him away from his real center, which has not yet been shown to him. But to one who has heard truth from his guru, the same world serves as a help to his spiritual progress, since each one of its objects points to his real center. So it's all one.
And it comes from just understanding, because
Yeah.
there seems to be a listening openness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What is the meaning of grace? Really, it's a meaningless word, but Shastras endorse it in a certain way, explaining this with the words, unless Jenny wants to read that. I don't think I'll try. Do you want to read that, Jenny? No? Okay.
It doesn't need to be read.
Yeah. To be born as a human being, it means these three things. To be born as a human being, to have a keen desire for liberation, and to come into contact with a sage. And Bill and I were just saying in our meeting before our meeting here that it can be anything. It can be a meeting with a sage. It can be the death of someone that brings truth to you. It can be anything. But these teachings point to a guru or a sage. And then he says, are the three rare possibilities attained by divine grace alone. Animals exist and man also exists, but man exists and knows he exists. This differentiates man from animals, and it is this which is meant by the, I'll say personness, he says manness, referred to above. The word manhood is weak and does not convey the sense implied. So a new word, manness or peopleness, is coined for the purpose. Do you have anything to say, Bill?
Well, yeah, I was a little surprised that he just so simplified the word grace, because I've always thought of grace as being like this overwhelming, grace comes in and everything is flipped. Everything, grace is like this overwhelming power of consciousness and there's no explanation found. So for the simplicity that he describes, grace is brand new to me. I thought it was interesting.
Jenny, is he using grace differently than we think of it?
No, I don't think he is. I think grace is exactly as Bill describes it. That's how I would also see grace. But I also see these three as being what leads to it in a way. To be born as a human being. Well, if we're talking about knowing the self, knowing the nature of the universe, then I think that is necessary. I mean, I guess we don't have evidence for what animals know, but my intuition would say that that's necessary. To have a keen desire for liberation, then yes, because that gives you the openness into which grace comes. Grace depends in the way I use it in the way that I think Bill was using it. It depends on this openness, and the keen desire produces that openness. And to come into contact with the sage, well, sage doesn't necessarily mean a person. Sage can just mean the expression of truth. And Francis often says there's either there's no sage or there's only one sage, and he's referring to the expression of truth. So I think for most people, we do need to come into contact with some kind of expression of truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was very helpful. Thank you, Jenny.
Yes.
And I like Jenny Sheehan's statement. Grace is like a happy accident. That's good. And then Dave Adams says Rupert describes grace as the gravitational pull of being that is always present. For me, grace is something that's noticed. It's something that's so unique and unexplainable and powerful that you can't not notice it in that way. So for me, it's a little, as I said before, it's just a little bit different for me. And also I agree. I like the 3 points that Krishna Menon uses also: to be born as a human being, it's grace; to have a keen desire for liberation. Of course, that everyone that's here has to say, "Oh my God, grace brought me here." Then that sounds accurate. And to come into contact with a sage, or to come into contact with the truth, same thing.
Yeah, I feel grace every time I remember from when I forget. And it doesn't even have to be that dramatic, just a moment of close to open. I mean, I might not name it, but if I were to think about it, it feels like grace. I didn't do it. I didn't think it. I didn't make it happen. There's no illusion about it. It just is.
It just
Oh,
happened. It just is. Yes.
yeah. And Amy Habel says, in a sense, this discourse tells us that all human beings are endowed with grace, and grace could also be known as a holy instant. Maybe grace is an attribute of being and is always present.
Well, that would be more what Rupert said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, true. All right. Well, let's move on to 137.
Yes, how to make the best use of manness. Some men make good use of the higher quality they possess, even from their birth. They begin to think what they are and strive on. All this being within the mind's realm, they begin to look beyond for ultimate truth. Finding this not attainable by self-effort alone, they search for long, far, and wide for a real guru. At last, the fortunate one gets a guru under whose guidance he rises from level to level to the right absolute. Some others ignore the higher quality and sink into samsara, worldliness again. I was in India when Ramesh Balsekar was alive. And in India, as most of you know, teachers aren't allowed to be teachers unless their teacher said, now you're qualified. And one of the ways that I observed that were part of having a guru was that you kept no secrets. And it's kind of like in AA when you have a sponsor, the way it was originally written. I'm not sure how it's done now, but you kept no secrets from your sponsor. And for me, that meant no exceptions. The personal mind makes exceptions. And I wonder if that doesn't further the openings, just kind of like not holding you back to a personal self. I don't know if this is relevant to anyone else, but when the guru is just our truth, and I don't mean just, there's something about asking questions, saying what's really going on for you that can speed up the letting it go. I don't know what other people think about that.
Well,
Maybe
I think it absolutely helps speeds up letting it go. That's the whole point of secrets are just hidden fears. Secrets are hidden shame or hidden guilt. And anything, and I think that's where the Christian, the New Testament gets the use of the idea of confession yields to by the mouth, confession is made into salvation or release or awakening. By confessing, if you say what you're hiding, it's no longer a tool that you're using against yourself.
It's no longer secret. Yeah. So that was just one advantage I saw when people had a person that they worked with that way. It seems a little closer than it is with most teachers in the US, where it's usually not as personal, can be, but not always. Yeah.
I don't understand the use of the male gender, manness, and I like I said, I'm supposed to be in a girl body because I always take an issue with these pronouns, male genders and stuff. I just always do. I don't understand it.
Different time.
Except that it's it's a male dominant culture.
Yeah. And a different time. We're much more sensitive to gender issues, gender words, gender referencing.
Yeah. All right, let's move to 138.
Philosophy of the West and the East. Reply to some American journalists and philosophers According to the West, philosophy is a string of assumptions, speculations, and inferences. But Vedanta philosophy is based on incontrovertible, direct perceptions or experience. Knowing truth thereby and establishing your real center there, you can take your life's activities with even more energy, ease, and confidence. I love that because people always say, yeah, but what about the world? And like, will you be dissociated from the world? And I don't think that's really anybody's experience. You're more free to be alive, I believe. That's how it feels to most.
Well, I like the distinction between the East and the West, and I think that's why we gravitate to the East for philosophy, because it's more relevant to our life experience instead of a string of assumptions, speculations, or opinions, inferences.
Yeah, and he's the one who coined the word direct path, as Jenny taught me, spoken of. He's the one who called it that, and that is so accurate.
Yeah.
The direct path of
It
non-duality.
seems like that whole discourse is on concepts versus a direct experience.
Yeah, and he does such a good job of laying out the direct, like how you get there. He doesn't just tell us. That's why I like to go to the bottom line first, because I'm used to what is the point you're trying to make. And now, okay, take me through. Now I can go with you. I don't know. It's probably a function of the East and the West conjoining in this body.
Yeah. Yeah. I love these next two discourses. In fact, I loved them so much. When I finished, I went into Lisa's office and I said, "Babe, you got to read 139 and 140 here. This will totally make your day." And it did. It was these next two are awesome.
So why don't you read it?
Well, this is one of my favorites. What am
Yeah.
I? It's all of our favorites.
Yeah.
What am I? As we just even give a space for pondering that. It's
Mhm.
everything.
Yeah.
And then I can perceive and know my body, sense organs, and mind. We can pause there and it all have that same experience. Therefore, I am evidently the subject, distinct and separate from all of them. And when anyone here says I, it's the same I. It's so wonderful. It's the same I. Your eye is my eye.
So good.
You can just
Yeah.
drink that in.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. Okay. So I thank you for giving me the opportunity to go first on that. Do you want to go with 140?
No, because you loved it. You do it.
Why is the knower not the doer or the enjoyer? This is another delicious answer. Because you never cease to be the knower. Doership and enjoyership come and go. Knowing takes place in a different plane. Oh, there's the second use of that word, plane.
Yeah.
Knowing takes place in a different plane. It's just a different, yeah, we don't need to go into plane, but the doing, perceiving, and thinking take place either in the realm of the body or of the mind. When these activities are taking place, they are simultaneously perceived by the I principle from a higher plane. The doer and the enjoyer always change. The knower is beyond all changes. I have to take a concession with that, or give an exception to that, because I think there's a distinction between the use of the word the knower and the knowing, because when you use the word knower, it
Mhm.
seems like it's dual.
Yeah.
That's what Jenny Beal, what do you think on that? Is that the right word?
I think he is using a dualistic formulation here,
Okay.
because he's separating subject and object, because that's where people are to start with. They feel that they are something objective. They feel that they are a limited body mind existing within a world, and that's something objective. So he's separating out the subject, and the subject is that which is aware of the body, that which knows the body, perceives it, knows the mind, and perceives that. And we can see very easily that never changes. Whereas the body and the mind itself are changing all the time, and so is the world. Everything changes, other than that I principle, that subject. But then there is so we are still in duality at that point, but we're very much further along the path than where people normally start. So there's a step beyond that, which he doesn't go into here, which is the recognition that all phenomena, all of what we see as being objects of experience, which and objects are just superimpositions of the mind, all of those are just the activity of consciousness. Elsewhere, like in Atmananda, he explains that all of that is like the waves in the ocean. The objects are like the waves. They're made out of the ocean. They're not inherently separate from the ocean. But he's not going into that here, because he's wanting people to see that separation, so that they stop thinking of themselves as being a body mind.
Yeah. It's kind of like using the idea of the observer as a first step
Yes.
in being aware.
Yes, it's the same thing.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah. And
Rosalyn, do you have anything else to add to that?
That last part makes it clear again what his point is. The doer and the enjoyer always change. It's that simple idea of change and changeless. The knower is beyond all changes. So even though he's still talking in those dual words, you're getting the feeling of what is it that's beyond a person as the knower. There is because the person is going to change. So he's almost teasing or giving hints of what's to come. The knower is beyond all change. It's evidently knowledge or consciousness itself. And there's what he's really saying.
There it is.
And it is no function since it's changeless. And this word function, it's a new one in this kind of language for me. And I think, it's probably a synonym to activity. But it's I think it's useful. Every time we find a new word, it sparks another opening to me, like of, function. Like it's just another widening to notice.
Yeah.
Expansion, exactly.
Let's look at 141.
We're supposed to be done
one.
at 140, but do you want to go on?
No. Is where's 140?
We just finished 140.
Oh, okay. That was the last one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's not even 1 o'clock yet.
Yeah, I know. This was a shorter one.
Okay. Well, are there any?
There were some more questions or comments we didn't look at, and maybe questions.
All right, let's look at that. Anyone want to raise your hand or have a question? Or is there one we need to read? Buddha said the human birth is as rare as as a one-eyed turtle popping up every 100 years and finding the perfect log. That's funny. All right. Is there anything that you see, Rosalyn?
I'm not sure I understand what Andrew was saying. I have to take it in. He says,
What
grace
time is
is
it?
what time? 12:38. Grace is the evolution of the mind from body to Atma to Brahma. Well, I guess I don't know how to think of that as mind.
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't say that would be mean in my vernacular. It wouldn't be.
Maybe Andrew would like to get on and say some more.
You want to say some more, Andrew? Thank you for chiming in. We don't want to make you a bad guy. You're welcome to give your 2 cents.
Maybe we don't understand what you had in mind.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep going.
Okay. So let's see. I guess that's it, unless anybody has anything.
I like the let's see. Susan wrote, I think this is Susan. I think the level of pain does matter even without a story. But I mean real pain from terminal illness, different story, no? Are you saying that even extreme pain can be remediated in this way without medication? Huh. Oh, this is from Susan Wright. Oh, from Susan Wright. I tell you, I don't know. It's when extreme pain, like post-operation or like a severe accident, that's you can't. Your attention can't be on something else, and it's in my experience, it's never on peace. It's on screaming.
They have done scientific studies with people in extreme pain where they either gave them biofeedback or they had somebody teaching meditation. They had a standardized for whichever research project it was. And people's experience is that the pain lessens when they have help to not focus on the pain. So, it is remediated by another thought than, oh my God, this hurts so badly. Oh my God, this hurts so badly. Oh my God, it's getting worse. Oh my God, that's what happens when there's not another way. So does it disappear? Does it become pleasure? That I don't know, but they have proven that it does change and lessen.
Well, how is it? How does that relate to the pain of birthing a child? I mean, the pain of birthing, it's like extreme.
Same thing. If you do breathing, it's like meditation. Take your mind off the pain and do the rhythms and do the breathing and have a coach. And
so go back to, what was it, 141? Go back to that and not try to get rid of it, but be it. How about that?
Yeah.
How about giving that in the maternity classes and saying, okay, now we're gonna make you one with your pain.
Well, if that were really understood and not just words, you would disappear into the oneness of
Yeah. Actually, that actually, I'm laughing about it and my face is turning red because, I was in those Lamaze classes and I watched 2 of my kids birthed, and it was like, in fact, if you women will remember saying, maybe you said to your husband what was said to me, get the fuck out of here, get out of my face. But truthfully, if that understanding were really practiced in Lamaze breathing classes, I think it would be as helpful, if not more helpful, if it was understood by the person having the experience. Somebody will have to tell us sometime. How, if you go to this 134 and tell us how that works out for you. Or no, not 134. It might have been 130, 131. Anyway, that was an interesting digression. Thank you.
And Dove says your saving grace script was written a long time ago. Do you want to say something more about that, Dove?
What is that?
At 1238, Dove says your saving grace script was written a long time ago.
Well, I kind of I took it from A Course in Miracles.
Mm-hmm.
In lesson 169, Jesus actually says, listen, why am I even telling you this? You don't even understand what I'm saying, but it's part of the script. So, I mean, basically everything that's happening is it's part of the dream. And as a lucid dreamer, we are recognizing that this is the way it was meant to be, period.
Yeah. 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 To take the fight out of anything. It just is.
Well, I mean, that sort of minimalizes it. I take the position that that when you minimalize it by calling it just a dream, I like taking the position that it's happening. It's just happening, and not to make it like it's minimal or it's just a dream makes it seem like, oh, it's not really happening. There is no world. I like taking the position of, yes, it is happening, and welcome everything exactly as it is. This is all consciousness. There's no separation in what's happening. Is there's no good or bad or something off, and the only distinction or helpful distinction that the dream character has is the distinction that you are that which is always is, and it changeless. So in my mind, the distinction belongs to the point of knowing and being, and just quiet, just silence comes after that. That's what I think as far as the dream character. And as far as the script is written, God is. Consciousness is. That would be the highest form of the script being written.
At 1213, William Price has a question. Probably Jenny could answer it. Is Vidya Vritti the same as Prajna? I might have said it wrong. Incorrectly.
There's a connection, but it comes. I believe that prajna comes from the Buddhist teaching. I think it's certainly not a term that I have seen within the Vedantic literature. But I think it has a similar kind of meaning. This clear seeing, this intelligence, this higher reasoning.
I knew a woman who was named Vidya. Does that have some kind of Sanskrit term?
Someone called Prajna.
Oh, Prajna. Isn't that like some kind of breathing practice or?
Pranayama is a breathing practice.
Oh, okay.
That's something different. Yeah.
I don't know, William. We don't have an expert to give answer to that.
I think we need a Buddhist expert on that.
It's a Sanskrit term, and it is the Prajnaparamita is a Buddhist idea of wisdom, but it's also an ancient, yogic term too. It just means high, like you said, Danny, higher reason. It's supra the supramental, above the manas, above the conventional mind.
Mm.
Right. Okay. Thank you, William. It's good to see you. And thank
Good
you,
to see
Jenny.
you.
And I think we've come to the end of our time. I think we can just end right here. And thank you all for being here for these discourses. I'm looking for a substitute for next week for Joel. So if you're interested, billfreeonline@gmail.com. Give me a shout and let me know. And we'll see you all next week if you're here. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Rosalyn.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
This has been great.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.